Ready to go. All right. Let me introduce Clara Ann Graham, President of the League of Women Voters of Lee County. She joined the League of Women Voters back in the early 70s after moving from the University of Nebraska to Virginia Tech, and she has served on both the Florida and the Virginia state boards. Currently, Clara Ann is a member of the League of Women Voters of the United States Climate Change Task Force and was recently inducted into the Lifetime Who's Who of American Women. She's also a resident of Bonita and a neighbor of mine. Please welcome Clara Ann Graham.
Thank you. Do we still have another candidate?
No.
No? Okay. I want to thank you all for coming. We're looking forward to the questions from the audience. The League of Women Voters always has the questions from the audience. We do not make up the questions. Jim Pellstring over here, who is a retired lawyer from Fort Myers, is our voter service chair, and he will be moderating and will give you the rules of the forum. I want to let you know that the League will have a general meeting at the Collaboratory this coming Saturday, and we will be addressing affordable housing and the Sadowski Act. And the first Saturday in April, we will be addressing reproductive rights. This is our first candidates forum of many. The last presidential election, we had 13 candidate forums, both local, state, and national. So this is a start, and we'll be holding some at the Alliance for the Arts and some at Shell Point Village. If you all know of some places you'd like to have a forum, please just get in touch with Jim or I, and we'd be glad to work with you. Okay, Jim?
Thank you, Clara Ann. Can you hear me on this? No? 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 Okay, all right. So welcome to the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum. We've developed a process for doing this, which is actually the National League of Women Voters way of doing it, which allows us to get a lot done in a short amount of time with no rancor. So the way that we're going to do it is we're going to ask a question from here, and each candidate will answer the question in turn. The next question that I ask, the second candidate will start, and it'll wind up back with Mr. Corey, so that everybody gets a chance to answer it first, but everybody has to answer each question. The League does not permit crosstalk among the candidates. The League does not permit commenting on the other candidates' positions. Now, if there are several positions available and you want to take one, that's fine. But no talking about your opponents. That keeps the rancor down, at least most of the time. And it also allows us to move on. It's pretty efficient. So we're here to talk about your council race. There are two seats up, I understand. Is it 2 and 4? I'm not going to make a distinction between the candidates for each seat. You'll just get whatever that you know who's running against who. You just need everybody's answers. And the candidates will have a 2-minute opening. Each question they'll get 1 minute to answer, and then at the end they'll have a 2-minute close. And if you have a question that you come up with along the way, write it down and pass it up. We're looking at it here in order to get enough, to get the response on a timely fashion and as we go. So, I have had the candidates draw cards to see who gives their opening statement first, and that person is Shelley Anderson.
I thought I was too.
You were, but number 1 is gone.
Okay.
Sorry,
It's
Chair.
freezing in
We're
here.
missing. I had 5 cards, and there are only 4 candidates showed up. Number 1 did not get picked by anybody.
Okay. You ready? Is the mic on? I feel like a little person in this big chair. My name is Shelley Anderson. I am a 41-year resident of Bonita Springs. I live in Old Bonita. The whole time I actually have. I lived on Goodwin Street for 11 years. See if this adds up. And I've been on Goodwin Street on the river for 30 years in the same house. I was in the finance business for 39 years. I worked for one local institution for 31 years. I retired and went to another one for 8 years. I retired from that in 2017, and in 2018, I bought a business with my daughter. So now I'm a local business owner, which is a whole different ballgame. My 3 children were born and raised here. One of my grandchildren was born here and lived here through elementary school, so they all went to local schools in Bonita, except one. 2 of my girls went to Estero. My son went to Cypress Lake. I have deep roots in Bonita. My parents lived here since 1975. 2 of my sisters live here. I've always been committed to helping Bonita grow in the right way. My first involvement in nonprofit organizations here was with the Literacy Council of the Gulf Coast. Well, we had a capital campaign when I was on the board, and I was on the board of the Center for the Arts, same thing, capital campaign. I have a long-term involvement in all different organizations here. Friends of the Salvation Army, Zonta Club of Bonita Springs. Oh, that's too quick. My reasons for running, besides my financial background and long-term living here, is I think the City Council has become too political. It should be a group of concerned citizens who can build relationship and encourage residents to be involved. I'm also concerned about the redevelopment in downtown Bonita, as well as the water issues.
Thank you. I have a question here that I'm not going to have you answer, and it's an opportunity to explain what you should not send up. Why should I vote for you instead of your opponent? Now, that just invites everything we're trying not to do today. So make sure that's specific to the issues. Let me start with the stormwater. Huh? I'm sorry. I'm just so anxious. Ben Hershenson.
That's me. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank the League for having this opportunity. I have been a resident of Bonita Springs for 15 years. I live in the Fairwinds community, which is off of Paradise Road in the Golf and Country Club area. I'm passionate about serving my community. Every city and town I've lived in, I volunteered to be on committees, and I could go through the whole list, but I won't bore you with that. I have a very strong desire to do all I possibly can, regardless of what happens in this election, to do all I can to mitigate the stormwater flooding that exists in my particular area. Because I believe in outreach, I have put together a steering committee in the area, went out to other communities in my area, and we have representatives from 9 different communities in the Golf and Country Club area, and we speak loudly at a city council meetings. I'm an advocate for everybody, gated and non-gated communities and those who live in freestanding homes. I don't think that they actually have had that opportunity as much to be involved.
I'll hold it.
I'm also concerned about balanced growth in the city, but it has to be balanced with the environment. I want to be able to make sure we preserve and maintain the environment for those that come after us. That is our job, to sit on that city council and to make decisions that makes it better for those people who are coming, and certainly stormwater mitigation and flooding is at the very top of my list, and I'm sure we'll be able to get into that in a few moments.
Thank you. Mr. Purdon?
I believe I'm last, actually.
No?
No? Okay. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, the Bonita Springs Fire Department, and for the recent endorsement from the Hispanic Vote Pack of Southwest Florida. The mayor and the deputy mayor have both endorsed my campaign, and I can't tell you how much that means to me. My name is Jesse Purdon. I'm running for District 2 City Council. I'm currently the chairman of the Outreach Committee, which was created to give folks who traditionally do not have a seat at the table a voice at the city government. I additionally was the vice chair of the Charter Review Commission. You'll find Amendment 10 and Amendment 4 on your charter ballots were ideas of mine that actually got to fruition. Most recently, I was able to help the city get a 90-day extension for the flood buyback program with the assistance of our state senator Kathleen Pasadomo, which is truly going to help those folks in the area that's been underwater 3 times. In Collier County, I fought $80 million in tax increases on the middle class. I've always been an advocate for responsive government, and I've always been somebody who cares deeply for our environment. If I win this seat, you're going to have the youngest person on City Council. Additionally, you are going to have the feistiest person on City Council, which is good for you, because that means you're not going to have somebody who will roll over when there is a tax increase that disproportionately hurts our district. It means that you're going to have somebody who, when the medicinal marijuana thing wasn't going the right way, fought with people on both sides and went and did the right thing. You're going to have somebody who has showed up on food trucks. You're going to have somebody who fought for the dog park during the budgeting process, which is in the heart of our district. You have somebody who did an event for Adam Jobbers Miller after he was murdered in Fort Myers, and I wasn't running for office. Quite frankly, it was just the right thing to do. And I got people from Collier County and Lee County, both fire departments, both police departments, and I brought them together. We raised thousands of dollars for that family. Listen, I'm 38 years old. I'm the VP of a transit-based micro-mobility company that deals with electric, carbon-neutral vehicles. I'm an aspiring father, a lover of nature, a paddleboarder, but most of all, I'm a fighter. This district deserves a fighter, and if you know me, you know that's exactly what they're going to get. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Corey?
I'm Chris Corey. I'm a candidate for District 4. I believe in Bonita Springs. My wife and I have lived in Bonita Springs since 2007. It's a wonderful community, but like with any growing community, it has its challenges. We're going to be 60,000 people in this year's census. It's projected that we're going to be 100,000 people by the year 2030. We have to have a long-range plan to how to successfully grow our community, how to successfully deal with the services our people need. Why am I running? I'm a CPA. I'm a retired audit partner with PricewaterhouseCoopers, an international accounting firm. My clients have included major public companies and public entities such as state university systems, major county governments, much larger than Lee County. I know the questions to ask. I know how they budget. I know how they should make decisions and what they need to do to go forward. I've been president of Bonita Bay for 2 years. I'm still on the board. I was responsible for bringing hot wire communications into Bonita Bay at a savings to our community of $30 million over 10 years because of the bulk contract we negotiated. I've been a president of the St. Louis Mental Health Association, the president of the board of the Logo School, which is a school for kids that aren't doing well in traditional school environments. I've been president of the Health Enterprises Network of the Louisville Chamber of Commerce. I'm a collaborative person. I work with people. I do town halls. I listen. I modify my views when necessary, but everybody knows what I decide and why I decide it.
Thank you. The first question tonight, we're going to start with you, Mr. Corey, and we'll come down this way. What is the process and your support for sidewalks in dangerous areas? For example, Imperial Shores Boulevard off Bonita Beach.
It's an interesting question because in Bonita Bay, we are studying all of our roadways to improve safety and access for our residents to our nature pathways. We're redoing 15 crosswalks right now that we can add light fixtures to, better painting, better marking to improve safety for our residents. I'm not familiar with Imperial Parkway in my district having a problem, but if there is, we need to address it with better sidewalks, better crosswalks, and make sure our people stay safe.
Yes, sir. Mr.
Excuse me, I didn't hear all of the question. I beg your pardon on that. Hope that doesn't take care of my time. I want to make sure I understood what the question was.
See, I moved on.
Well, I want to make sure I get it right.
No, I get it. I get it back here. Well, I put it down here. That's what I should have done. What is the process and your support for sidewalks in dangerous areas? For instance, Imperial Shores Boulevard off Bonita Road.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not familiar with that particular area, but I'll look at my own community. Talk about sidewalks. Several years ago, we had a new sidewalk put in on Paradise Road, and I was out on the back of the, at that time, Director of Public Works. I would say, Matt, what's the story on getting a sidewalk on Maddox Lane, which is a very curvy section between Paradise Road and Cockleshell? That same thing would apply anywhere else. A very dangerous little short spur. I understand that the contracts have been let and construction will be underway come this summer. So again, whatever area of the city needs to be looked at from the standpoint of safety, absolutely. Whatever needs to be done has to be done. If we don't have safety and welfare as our first order of business, then we're not doing our job.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
One of the main parts of my platform is to increase the safety, walkability, bikeability of Old Bonita. Old Bonita is primarily east of Old 41, and there's a lot of neighborhoods back in there. I walk and bike all the time in those areas, and a lot of our residents, particularly in the old parts of Bonita, they walk and bike to school and work. So they're not out there doing it for pleasure. They need, you know, safe roadways to get to work and school and other places. I live on Goodwin Street, and it's very dangerous. It's like a racetrack. There is no bike path. There's no place to walk unless you're walking in people's yards. So it's a big concern to me. My kids used to walk to school, of course, and a lot of kids do. So that's a very, very on top of my mind for Old Bonita.
Thank you. Mr. Purdon?
I'm running on a platform that will essentially continue what we started in 2012 when we started the development of what's going to be our, hopefully, a sparkling gem that's our downtown, and that was to have a bikeable, walkable, pedestrian-friendly downtown. Additionally, in my private life, I'm VP of a micromobility company that focuses on first and last mile of transit for downtowns and universities around the country. So I intimately understand the importance of sidewalks. Safety is first. Our children are walking on those sidewalks. There's nothing more important to me than our children, and for me, you know, I'm open to having discussions in any portion of the city where we have sidewalk issues. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now start with Mr. Hershenson. Can we or should we try to control growth in Bonita Springs?
We are a growing city. I think we're number 8 in the country, at least in 2018, as being the fastest growing city in the country, and I believe in Florida we were actually number 1. So we are a growing city. And you say balanced growth. I'm all for growth up to a certain point. I'm looking forward to the comprehensive plan when it comes out to see what the projections are, demographics for the future, and we have to be ready for it. We have a great product here. We have beautiful weather. We have waterways, and the bottom line is that I want to make sure we have a safe environment for our visitors and so forth, and I will be anxious to look at the comprehensive plan to see what are the plans for the future. We can be ready for it if we make the right decisions today.
Ms. Anderson?
Well, I think it would be naive to think that nobody else is going to move here or want to move here. I mean, people are going to come, and I think the next 5 to 10 years in Bonita Springs are going to be critical in the development and how we do it. I think in the past we've made some mistakes with development, particularly pertaining to water issues. I think we have gotten smarter about that, but I think we have to really pick the right people to continue to develop and build in a smart way and in a way that takes into account the environment and the river. The river goes right through the middle of town, and it's so important to us. So I think the continuation of the development is going to happen. We just have to do it the right way. As much as we'd like to say we want to be the last ones here, that's not going to happen. Other people want to come. They're going to continue to come. As Ben said, it's one of the fastest growing areas. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Purdon?
Can we control growth is a very interesting question. I would say that we can plan accordingly with the comp plan, but, you know, and we can take true thought as future development unfolds into sizes, heights, densities, things along those lines, but can we control it? I don't know that we could, and I don't know necessarily that I would want to necessarily control it, in the sense that I'm not an advocate for rolling up the shutters. If you're an advocate for rolling up the shutters, Naples might be more your type of town than Bonita. Look, we're growing. I'm proud of the fact that we're growing. We're growing because we have the nicest school in the state of Florida. We have award-winning beaches. We have property rates you can afford. And we have one of the best downtown. We are going to have one of the best downtowns in all of Southwest Florida. So, can we control it? Sure. Would I want to? No. Do I want to do a nice, thoughtful analysis of what comes next? Absolutely. And I hope I can be part of that.
Mr. Corey?
I'm for smart development, but I'm also for smart planning. Given what we have down here in Bonita Springs today, I think we're all suffering from a lot of traffic issues, a lot of noise issues from US 41, from I-75. So we need smart development, but we also need to figure out how we're going to deal with the population growth that we're going to have. For example, people in off Paradise have told me that before Shangri-La was put in, they didn't flood. We need to take that into account when we're planning our roadways. We need to take into account the fact that our aquifers are precious to our drinking water supply. We need to take into a fact that the more development off Corkscrew Road means more sheet flow of stormwater into Bonita Bay. So we got to do the proper planning to have the smart development that we need.
Thank you. Next question is answered first by Ms. Anderson. Would you raise taxes if needed for growth and development in the city?
Would I raise taxes? Well, I don't plan to want to raise taxes. I'm very much a fiscal conservative. I haven't seen the need for that yet. I guess I would have to say that I'm not as involved in what the numbers have been for the budget. And the more I learn on the city council, I'll know. But I don't plan to raise taxes. I'm not for tax increases. Like I said, I'm very fiscally conservative. So I would say no.
Mr. Purdon?
I'm not raising taxes.
Okay. Mr. Corey?
Well, I'm not only not raising taxes, but I'm going after the taxes we've already paid with Lee County. Lee County soaks this town with $60 million of taxes a year, $600 million over 10 years. The benefit that Bonita Springs gets is estimated by economists to be somewhere between 10 and 15% of return. So that when we need money to complete the purchases of the country club up in District 4, when we need the money to complete whatever flood mitigation needs to take place down Logan Avenue, the first place I'm going to go and insist that the Republican leaders in our area get behind is going to go up to Lee County and say, look, we need part of that money back. We don't need to raise the taxes here. We need to go get what we've already paid.
Thank you. Mr. Hershenson?
Yes, certainly as a fiscal conservative, I'm opposed to taxes, absolutely. But the bottom line for me on this whole issue of taxes has to do with proper planning. And we're not getting our fair share from Lee County. That's pretty darn obvious. But I also want to recognize this administration, and I have to just simply say, because it's true, this city has received $29 million recently in grants. That says something. There are a lot of grants out there. Previous administrations did not do this, and I want to commend the mayor and the council for being very aggressive in getting grants. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us, and I congratulate the city staff for being aggressive. $29 million, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to help a hell of a lot for reducing any future taxes.
Okay. The next question, everybody has answered that, right? Mm-hmm. I tend to get lost in this. Will be answered by Mr. Purdon. Since we're on taxes, what is your stance on the recent water tax?
I was hoping this one would come up. I was actually one of the only ones who was adamantly against the water tax. I went to the council and I fought the water tax, and I'd like to explain the reasons why I fought the water tax. It was a regressive tax that hosed my district. First of all, it would not, if we were going to make a deal, it would have been a deal that would have been fair to my people. I have people in 1,200 square foot homes who are paying more than people who are on the 10th floor of the colony. If I were a council person, that's not a deal that would have been done from the start. That's not fair. It disproportionately hurt the people, most who couldn't afford it, and additionally, we fiscally didn't have to do it. We got $3 million from FEMA the day before that vote. We went up between 17 and 18, $750,000 in ad valorem added to the piggy that they didn't anticipate getting. So they're up $3.75 million, and then they vote to raise our taxes $50 a home when you have people who have holes in the roofs they can't afford to fix. $50 is the difference between medication and groceries, and they shouldn't have to make that decision, especially from people on the 10th floor of the colony. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Corey?
I'm in favor of the stormwater utility because I think we are going to be successful in getting the FEMA grant monies to buy the country club property north of Paradise. Once we have that property, we're going to need to maintain it. One of the things that's happened from the date of incorporation is Lee County passed the buck for stormwater management down to Bonita Springs. It's like the parks. We got the parks. We didn't get any tax money for maintaining the parks and maintaining our recreational facilities. We don't get any tax money to maintain our stormwater system. So unfortunately, we're obligated to pay some large legal settlements. If those legal settlements, totaling $11.3 million plus obligations, other obligations like legal fees and road constructions hadn't happened, maybe we wouldn't have needed the stormwater tax. But we need something in place to maintain what we're going to have and fix up what we already have.
Thank you.
I was a prime mover for the establishment of a stormwater utility here in Bonita Springs. One thing about me, I'm my own person. No one tells me how to think, talk, and anybody who's known me over the years, I'm the kind of guy that goes against the stream. And I strongly supported this. As a matter of fact, the former city councilor from District 4 was in Africa, and he said, Ben, what do you think the vote's going to be? I said, Peter, it's going to be 4-3. And he said, Ben, thank you so much for your leadership, because I worked all summer trying to get people to support this. And I can say that I supported the stormwater fee. I'll continue to support the establishment of a stormwater utility, and if necessary, continue the fee, because that is far more critical than $50 a year or whatever the amount may be. So I support it. In the past, I still support it.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I do support the fee. I think that anyone who was flooded, as I was, I've been flooded twice, but severe flooding during Irma, I think anybody that was flooded would be in favor of the $50 fee. Primarily, the flooding occurred in District 2 and to some extent in District 4 as well. I think we were the most hurt by the flooding, and I don't mind. I haven't talked to anybody in my district who minds paying the $50 fee. A lot of people had damage. I can relate to that. It was a very, very tough time, and I'm in favor of it, was in favor of it, and will continue to be.
Thank you. The next question will start with you, Ms. Anderson, I believe, right?
I don't know.
I've lost count at this point. I don't know.
No, we're back to Chris.
Yeah,
Mr.
Chris.
Corey, okay. What are your plans to protect the DR groundwater, GR?
I'm sorry, oh, the DRGR?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, one of the things that I did last summer was spend a lot of days up in the Lee County, the Board of Commissioners chambers, trying to help stop the development of the Troyer mine and other mining operations and stop the remapping of permitted property along Corkscrew Road and south that could be developed. Unfortunately, they didn't listen. I think they have to listen. We have to organize South Lee County leadership to insist on a meeting with the commissioners to stop unwise development along Corkscrew and into the DRGR, because it impacts our water supply and it impacts the flooding that we experience here in Bonita Springs.
For those that are somewhat new to here, can you define
what DRGR is?
It's,
Groundwater recharge area. Density reduction, groundwater recharge area.
it's the aquifer outside the city limits.
It's over in the east coast.
Sorry?
East of the-
I'm sorry.
Overall, as a background as a biologist, I want to see a lot in the area of controlled growth and development. It's critical. The DRGR, the reclaiming of the Everglades, very essential to all of us. And there's got to be a limit to everything. And I think going into the DRGR with more and more density, I think is a mistake. I am for development, but it can't be where you squeeze so many homes in a given area, in an area that was naturally a plain, that was natural, water would accumulate, percolate the way it's supposed to, the biological life was healthy, and I hate to see that invaded the way some people have gotten away in the past. So I definitely support very controlled growth in that particular area.
Thank you.
I'm not in favor of development in the DRGR. We've been talking about this for years and years. It's a constant subject that we talk about. Money talks, as we all know, and sometimes developments happen. And I just think it's wrong. We need that area so badly for water retention as part of the Everglades, and I'm very much against. I think there's a lot of areas that we can develop and maybe should develop in a smart way, and the DRGR is not one of them, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Purdon?
Yes. In 2016, I lost by 63 votes for this seat, but one of the platforms was that I was against development in the DRGR. At that time, I was also working for a gentleman named Congressman Kurt Clausen, who you may remember. Kurt got into the congressional race due to the DRGR. I'm adamantly against density increases out there. I will fight to protect it, and I understand the value that's out there. Kurt, known as the water congressman, was the guy who was, he got a bill passed that helped to block offshore drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. So that's the cut of cloth that I'm from, and I promise you I understand intimately our water issues, and I'll be there to fight for them.
Thank you. Mr. Corey?
I just did the
Mr.
last one.
Mr.
Yeah.
Herschel?
Yep.
I've been doing this for years, and I never get this straight. What are your plans to stop the flooding in Bonita Springs Golf and Country Club?
Wow. I would say number
Get
one,
busy, Ben.
if anybody's been involved in this intimately, believe me, it's been me for the last several years. We started with developers coming in. We had Toll Brothers, then we had a group from Sarasota, and we had forums, and they backed out, thank heaven. We now have a situation where Baron Collier has an interest in the land. However, we just received a large FEMA grant. I say we, the city, $9.9 million. Currently, right now, it's in two phases. Phase one will be the engineers doing the planning and design work, and then the engineers doing the modeling. Phase two, if phase one gets supported, then phase two will begin, which is the acquisition of the land. So I've been intimately involved in this for about the last 7 or 8 years, maybe 10 years. I continue to support it.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I definitely support the city buying that property. I don't think it should be developed. I think everybody that lives there and outside of there agrees that's caused such a problem with the flooding, and it's a perfect opportunity for us to buy it and use it for stormwater retention and maybe some nice parks in addition to that, but I'm definitely not in favor of developing that area.
Thank you. Everybody has answered that question.
No. No.
So as far as the Golf and Country Club go, I think water retention would be good use for it. But I want to be honest, this is not going to fix flooding at the golf course. This is not going to fix flooding in Bonita, just like the $50 house tax isn't going to fix flooding in Bonita. The problem with Bonita is we're built essentially under sea level, and that is a situation that we have to address. That's why I was active in the buyback program. That's why I was able to help get us a 90-day extension when they initially gave us 30, because I understand intimately where these people are at. I was flooded out twice. So I get it, and I promise that I will not only pay attention to our water, but I'll pay attention to your wallets.
Mr. Corey?
I'm not in favor of development. I'm not in favor of houses being built on that property. I've had the opportunity to talk to Matt Feeney, Director of Public Works. They've done the work on the computer modeling that shows that the plans to take that country club, build dry water retention areas, improve the creeks and ditches that are in there, can handle the flooding. They have to convince FEMA that it will work, and at that point be ready to demonstrate to the county that it will work. But I think it'll work. And more important, I want to hold town hall meetings within that part of the district to make sure that everybody thinks they're being treated equally and fairly with respect to the plans to handle flood mitigation.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
With respect to the acquisition,
Yeah, he started the last one.
I know, it's confusing, isn't it? With respect to the acquisition of the Bonita Country Club, which of the engineering plans do you recommend?
I haven't seen the engineering plan, so I can't recommend something that doesn't exist.
I think he's
It's her
asking me. I
question.
haven't seen them either, so I can't respond to that. Sorry.
I wouldn't get ahead of my skis even if I had seen them and say which one I favored.
Yeah, I'm not going to
think we're
comment.
a
I'm
long way
going
from
to
that.
I'm going to leave it up to the experts.
All right,
But actually, do I have any more time? Because I did give an
No,
answer.
you
You
just
don't?
save
Okay,
it
that's
for the
good.
next question.
That's fine. We'll move on.
so that went around, right? So
Yeah,
now-
okay, that's fine.
Sort
That's fine. I wasn't quite finished. I was getting my second thought.
What should this, Mr. Purdon, what should the city be doing to improve water quality so that we can avoid red tide and blue-green algae?
Well, one of the things that I'd like to do, and I started procedurally working with city staff about 1.5 years ago on something I was calling the Bonita Reef Project. And essentially what that was is putting mini reefs, and I wanted to use these mini reefs because these units, I don't know if you've seen them, but there's a nonprofit up in northern Fort Myers that does them beautiful. Anyway, bottom line, it filtrates water at a very high rate. It does excellent things for the water quality, and we looked actually at putting them down in Imperial River, but due to the level of salt that was currently there, it's not possible there. There are other areas in the river that might potentially be good for that. So I think that definitely reef projects would be important. Protecting the DRGR is going to also continue to be important, and continuing what we're doing from a city perspective. Look, we're very active. We're out. Not only are we out in the water, but we're out on the beaches. We have award-winning beaches. People forget that about Bonita Springs. So, Imperial River, award-winning beaches. That's the way we got to go.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Corey?
The thing with the water quality is we need to reduce the nitrogen in the water. The reason we need to reduce the nitrogen in the water is we need to move water south through the Collier County Canal System into the Everglades. Now, Collier County is not under a nitrogen reduction order. Bonita Springs is under a nitrogen reduction order. If we can get that order lifted from Florida DEP, I believe, according to city staff, that we can sit down and work out an agreement where we can move water south into that canal system. The other thing we need to do is we need to reduce the other pollutants that nobody seems to really talk too much about. They're flowing into the river and into Estero Bay. Estero Bay is a watershed, a natural resource. Our grasses need to be protected so that we can keep our dolphins, our fish, and our manatees healthy. If we lose Estero Bay, we lose a big resource.
Thank you, sir.
On the issue of clean water, I want to say this very emphatically. I don't think we can depend upon others to do the work that we're supposed to do in our own city. And for example, there is a bioreactor that exists at Phelps and Abernathy, and I commend the city for doing this. A simple thing, bioreactor, underground, wood chips and stones. The water goes through and removes, the nitrogen gets broken down into nitrates get broken down to nitrogen, which goes off into the atmosphere. I think it's great, and I think we should have to do this all throughout the city. Where we have some vacant land is to perhaps put in filter marshes as well as bioreactors. We have to clean our own water. I want to see Bonita Springs have clean water before it goes anywhere else.
Sir. Ms. Anderson?
As far as the cleanness of the water, I think the Imperial River is cleaner than any river nearby, so that's a good thing. It's cleaner than the Estero River, it's cleaner than the rivers in Naples. And I agree with Ben, the bioreactors seem to be working really well. I think that was a very creative idea to come up with, and it seems to be working, and I think that we can do that in other places. A lot of the red tide problem in the Gulf comes from Lake Okeechobee, so that's a problem that we have to deal with the Army Corps of Engineers, so that's not a Florida decision, but I think that we have to continue to make sure that those releases aren't affecting the Gulf. Last year, when the red tide was so bad for a year, we had porpoises up in the river, and they're not supposed to be there. And they were up there because they couldn't find food in the Gulf because the red tide was so bad. That's depressing, and it can't continue to happen.
Thank you. Everybody has answered that question?
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Corey, if you feel the roundabout at Terry and Old, I don't know what that is. Is that
41.
Old 41, okay. It's important to replace immediately. Where are the funds to do it going to come from? Taxes?
No, the funds would come from Florida Department of Transportation. There could be some minor amount of money coming from the city. But the problem may not be the circle itself. The problem exists because of too much traffic coming eastbound on Terry in the morning, also north or southbound 41, in both rush hours. We have a big hang-up of traffic at Bonita Beach Road and 41. And so what happens is, especially during season, people can't stand the time it takes to get down to Bonita Beach Road, make a left to go east on the beach road. They'll cut through Terry. That circle was never designed to take that level of traffic that's on it now. So if we can somehow solve the problem at 41 and Bonita Beach Road, make some minor improvements to the circle, like moving the pedestrian bicycle walkways back, I think we stand a chance of not alleviating the problem,
Thank you,
but
sir.
making it better.
One of the things I want to see at the roundabout is to have the crosswalks moved. You see the kids in the morning going. They were supposed to be moved, and that is something I'll push very strongly. As for the traffic, we are a resort area. People are going to come to visit. And I hope that someday maybe they can use some alternate roads, perhaps another cut through to East Terry Street. But I don't foresee anything, I hate to say it, but I don't see anything in the foreseeable future to make that change, not with the big construction project going on for the redevelopment of the downtown area. So I think we have to do the best we can to come up with the proper plans and to try to make it work with what we have. But I know that the funding has to come from somewhere, and it's one thing to talk about funding from another source. I don't know where it's going to come from to rebuild it.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I don't feel that the roundabout will be rebuilt. I don't think that's realistic to think that's going to happen. I wish that it had been a little wider when it was built originally. But to me, the biggest problem there is the crosswalks. It's so dangerous. They're too close to the circle, so you get right up to where you're going to go into the circle, and the light goes on, and there's a pedestrian there, or several. So I think if they were moved back on all four corners, that it would be a lot safer for everybody. I think that the traffic at that corner would be just as bad or worse if there was a traffic light. This time of year, the traffic is still going to be backed way up south. You know, it just is. That's certain times of the day. Living on Goodwin Street, I go right out to Old 41, I don't know how many times a day, and you know, it's just a fact of life. You just have to leave a few minutes early. But I don't think the roundabout's going to go away. But I do think that we need to be more concerned about the safety of the pedestrians, the kids that are walking to school there. It's a bad situation.
Thank you. Mr. Purdon?
One of the things that people like and don't like about me is I'm direct and I'm honest. I was anti-crosswalk, or I was anti-roundabout. I'm not anti-roundabout, even though it's very cool to be anti-roundabout right now. Look, I live less than a half a mile from that roundabout, and I'll tell you what, it got to be a roundabout for a reason. That was for about 3 years in a row one of the #1 intersections for traffic accidents in the state of Florida. That's what predicated us getting to the position we're in with the roundabout. And I think that we could easily say the accidents are down. Do I like traffic? No, of course not. Do I want to blow this thing up? Absolutely not. I just think it's, you know, I'm big enough to say when I was wrong, I was against the circles. I don't want to say I'm for the circles right now, but they're working, and honestly, we have dollars that are better allocated other places.
Thank you. We've all answered that question. Mr. Hurt?
I think so. Yeah, I guess.
Mr. Hershenson?
Yes, I'm here.
What is your vision for the downtown district?
I like the plans that were developed by CVRE, at least the artist conception. The RFPs have been sent, and I'm anxious to look forward to what they basically say. Mixed housing, mixed uses, commercial property, housing. Imagine little boutiques along the river. Reminds me of other cities like San Antonio and so forth. I envision that for the downtown area. We were supposed to have something like this back about 10 years ago. It fell through. This time around, it's going to happen. I'm very excited about it. We have 6 acres that need to be developed, and we don't know if it's going to be parceled out or whether it's going to be one developer coming in to do it all. But whatever it is, the plans look great. I'm excited about it, and I look forward to seeing this come to fruition.
Ms. Anderson?
I think that I'm very excited that the RFPs or requests for proposals have been sent out. We have a timeline on that, so we're going to be hearing from developers. When we went through this 10 years ago, we had a lot of city meetings, a lot of community involvement. I went to all of them because I live right there. So I think that can be a beautiful mixed-use development with retail, you know, restaurants. The river goes through the property, so it straddles the Imperial River. And so I'm very excited about that. There's also a plan in the works. I'm not sure where it stands. Tony Manzalillo is going to develop from where the traffic circle is, basically to Goodwin Street on both sides of the road. And that plan has been approved by the city. I think it was approved about 3 years ago. I'm not sure exactly of the time. It was a little while ago. And so I'm kind of anxious for that to get started. I thought that was another mixed-use development, and the plan was approved, and so we have several things going on that are very exciting.
Thank you. Mr.
Yeah, I'm sorry, can you get the question? I'm sorry. Downtown development, how would I do downtown development?
What is your vision for the downtown district?
It's like I was talking about before, a bikeable, walkable, pedestrian-friendly downtown. We started this visioning study in 2012 with the Bonita Springs Chamber of Commerce for the second revamp of what was going to be downtown. And now look, 6 years later, we're halfway there. You know, we've done the taxpayer side of it. We've done the infrastructure on the water underneath. We've put the electrical lines in. We've done the roundabouts, like them or not. So as far as from the public side of it, we spent the dollars. Now we need to get out of our own way, like we are in the process of doing, and allow the proposals to come in. And then we'll evaluate the proposals and get what's best for the city, so we can start getting an ROI on those pieces of land. Like right now, there's 0 ROI in the tax base, and there's 0 ROI in the local economy, and those are 3 of the biggest parcels in the middle of our town, which is going to actually, hopefully, lead the way to the best downtown in all of Southwest Florida. That's what I really want to be a part of.
Thank you. Mr. Corey?
I think we have a chance to build something really unique in this part of Southwest Florida. I envision something that actually draws people to the area and encourages them to live in multi-use housing, put some vibrancy into Bonita Springs in such a way that it makes it unique and different from Naples and so forth. I think we have to have a little bit of caution. I think we have to make sure that we take care of our long-term downtown businessmen. As we do this project, they've lived through a lot with the redevelopment of Old 41 between Terry and the Beach Road. Let's not make their life any more difficult while we do this. And let's make sure we put in enough parking so when we have events at Riverwalk Park and all the way downtown, that we have a way to move people around we have a place for people to park.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
What investments in our infrastructure are most required at this time?
I think besides the water issues, the traffic, the traffic, not just on Old 41, but there's a lot of different places where we have traffic issues. The Bonita Beach Road 41 intersection has been studied to death, I think, and we've come up with a quadrant plan, and people have talked about an overpass and an underpass, and you know that's a very bad situation right there. So I think we need to figure out what to do there. And there's other, you know, when you go north on 41 at the end of the day, if you're, you know, going from Naples north, it's backed up, you know, from Bonita Bay to Pelican Landing. And so I don't know, you know, how many roads can we add? So I think we need different east-west ways to go. And I think adding the opening Logan Road will help. The Bonita Beach traffic, I hope, going south to Naples. So some things are being done, but I think the traffic is a huge, and the roadways are a big issue.
Thank you.
Jesse?
Mr. Purdon?
I'm sorry. I think that along the lines of what Shelley was saying, you know, with the traffic, north and south, east and west, release valves for the traffic, I think is very important. When I'm talking about release valves, I'm talking, the true Bonitians, we know a lot of these little shortcuts, you know, piping and opening up some of those similar to how we did with Longfellow, and being able to get people on other corridors that are moving north and south will help the overall traffic issue. But I mean, as far as true infrastructure, I'd like to see a way to incorporate piping more water into the bioreactor. I think green infrastructure, which is what I consider the bioreactor, is a great way forward for us. If we can figure out ways that we can pump more water in there and get fresh water out, I think that'd be a great win for us.
Mr. Corey?
The number one issue that I hear most about outside of flooding is traffic. There have been numerous proposals for correcting the traffic at 41 and Bonita Beach Road. Bonita Beach Road westbound at certain times of the day is as bad as Bonita Beach Road eastbound. We simply have to come up with a solution and get it done because we are growing quickly. Whether that's what they call a quadrant plan, whether it's a continuous flow concept, I pretty well think the overpass is a dead issue. The flyover, I call it, because it certainly doesn't help businesses in that corner if you build a flyover. But we got to get moving because more and more people are coming. We can't afford to delay addressing traffic.
The issue of traffic, you build more roads, there's going to be more stormwater runoff and all those other considerations. We need to make our roads and walkways a lot safer than what they are right now, and that can be done, I think, pretty easily. But I think the greatest struggle we have, or challenge, is on the issue of infrastructure, is our entire stormwater outflow system. Now, as president of my HOA, I know what it's like. When the stormwater goes out, it'll go so far, and then it gets blocked and it backs up. Why? Because there are pipes that, frankly, the city has not taken care of in the past. Now, with the stormwater utility, we're going to start having money to clean out these areas, clean out the swales, make sure that the water, which is all interconnected underground, that all of the throughways are underground, all of that water flow is completely cleaned out and brought up to snuff so that basically we can get the water out before it causes the flooding. That, to me, is the most important part of our entire infrastructure.
Thank you. Now I've lost track here. Who started that?
I started that one, so.
Okay,
Jesse's
Mr.
next.
Purdon, thank you.
Infrastructure investments?
No.
No, it's a new question.
What is the new one?
Do you think the quadrant plan for New 41 and Beach Road will work?
I'm hopeful it'll work. I mean, you never want to, hope for failure. I will say that, if you want to rewind a little bit in Bonita history, that's how the whole flyover argument started, and that's how the whole thing erupted, was on a quadrant study on Bonita Beach Road in 41. And this was an administration ago But at that time, look, the former mayor and the former deputy mayor went to the MPO against the sitting council and essentially said, we want to do this. And the sitting council said, no, we didn't want to do this. But bottom line, in between that portion, when there was miscommunication on the board, the torches came out and the buses came to City Hall. And that conversation essentially ended. So, am I excited about the quadrant study? Potentially, but I want to see what the actual results are. Everybody wants to improve Bonita Beach Road, but how do you want to do it? I'm not going to support a flyover. So what exactly is it that you want to do to it? I'm open to looking at the options.
Well, I just addressed the traffic at that intersection. It's probably no more important infrastructure project for those that have to live along 41 or those that have to commute along 41. There's a tremendous amount of traffic, and the other thing that the traffic does is generate a tremendous amount of noise. The 41 from Burnwood to North Bonita Gate, Bonita Bay Gate, is a speedway. I've been on that when traffic is passing me at 70 miles an hour. That generates a ton of noise that's going into all the developments along that road. We simply have to slow that traffic down. We have to fix the intersection. I understood that things were moving along until we had funds committed now to pay the legal settlements. Things have sort of slowed down, but we need to get, it's sort of too late to start over with a plan. We need to get something going, something built, and something for the next tens of thousands of people that move down here.
I have hopes for the quadrant study, and it may work indeed, and I hope it does. But I can't comment on it until I actually see what the details are, other than I hope it works. With respect to 41 and the traffic and the speedway, I wish there was more monitoring by Lee County, and also the state, if it has authority to do this. We have people speeding, and yellow light means to speed up and get through that red light. Today I saw it happen 3 different times. It's very scary. You have to drive very defensively. And 70 miles an hour on a road that's 45 or 50 is a little bit too much. So I'm hoping that from the standpoint of safety, the sheriff's department, or whoever it is, gets out there and starts writing tickets and make it tough for these people who are running red lights.
Thank you.
My understanding of when the last administration with the MPO was that they were offered, the city council was offered funds to do a study on a flyover, and the city council voted that down. It was just a study, so they didn't vote down having a flyover. I just wanted to clear that up. From what I've read about the quadrant plan, it might take 25% of the traffic or decrease what's happening now by about 25%. I don't think that's enough. I don't know what the answer is. I agree with Chris that, it's going to hurt the businesses if you have a flyover. So you can't have everything. I'm not sure what the right thing is. The quadrant plan study has been going on for a while, and hopefully we'll get some definitive numbers and information about whether that's the best way to go. I think the worst thing to do would to spend all the money to do the quadrant plan and rerouting the traffic and then find out we still have a huge problem. So it's an issue that we're going to continue to deal with for a while.
Thank you. We are getting down to the end of this. If you have a question you haven't asked, please write it down and get it up here soon so that we can get it in the process. Okay, here's one I think you're all going to like. Are you open to disclosing all of your campaign contributions?
Who's got that?
I'll take it.
That's a question.
Oh, but who's speaking first?
I think Mr. Corey is, right?
Okay, sorry.
Oh, I think Jesse is.
Huh?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because I answered the first.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I was the first on the last one.
My answer is absolutely, and it's all public record on the state and the city, and I'm fully good with that, so yeah.
Yeah, I don't, I'm using money that I've raised by grassroots support. I'm using money that I provided to my campaign, so I don't have any problem disclosing it.
The answer to the question is pretty simple. There's a requirement that all of this gets filed with the city. It's ready. The city clerk just sent out one that was recently done. So from the standpoint of that, of course, it has to be public, and we're obligated to do that. So I don't even, the question, perhaps it's a good one overall, but the person may not know. But they're on file with the city. There's another report due this Friday. And all of those are matter of public record. So if anybody has any question about where people's money is coming from or who's donating, all you have to do is go to the city website and you'll find that information.
That's true to a certain extent. So you do have to file a treasurer report disclosing your contributions and your distributions that you've made, but that doesn't include PAC money. Some of the candidates have taken PAC money. Interestingly, the PAC that they have received money from got most of its contributions from the DG Mines, which you may remember that we've been through a 2-year legal battle with them, and the rest of it from the Lee County Building Association. So I'm proud to say that all of my contributions came from friends, supporters. I've had a lot of support. As Ben said, you can go on the City of Bonita Springs website and see our reports, and all mine are listed there. So I encourage you to do that.
Back to me. Mr. Cross, you're up for the question.
Corey.
Me? Oh, Corey.
Mr. Corey?
Yeah.
Mr. Corey, sorry. You are elected by a district. I'm not sure which, you're in District 4. If you're elected by a district, but you represent the entire city population, and we are not in your district, how responsive would you be to our concerns?
It's interesting. One of the ways that I've been campaigning, since I'm pretty well limited under the city charter to how much I can spend per registered voter, is to use Facebook. Facebook allows me to circulate posts about my positions on the issues. It allows a lot of people in my district, and in fact, because you can't really target too well on Facebook, it allows a lot of people from all over Bonita Springs to respond. Do they like the idea? Do they not like the idea? Do they share the idea? So forth. I'm a big believer in collaborative government. I represent people. I want to hear what they have to say. I want to make the best decision I can based on what I hear, what my research is, and I will continue to hold town hall meetings to get that information.
I have run several town halls in the area that I live in over the past several years. And as a member of City Council, my obligation is to always listen to my colleagues, and most importantly, to make a decision, whatever it happens to be, that will be in the best interest of all of the citizens of the city of Bonita Springs. I do that when I run my HOA board meetings. I listen to my board members, I listen to the members who have questions, and then I render my opinion. I do not speak before it because I want to know what the people are thinking and what they are saying. So again, this is what I practice this every single day. I do the same thing. I listen to people, and now make a decision that always represents not my neighbor, but what is in the best interest of the people I'm serving.
Thank you.
As I said, I've gotten a lot of contributions from friends and supporters, and not all of those people live in my district. I know people all over Bonita, and the support that I've received from all of them has been overwhelming in a wonderful way. And they're supporting me because they know that I'm going to do the best thing for Bonita, not for my district. It's not about me, it's about all of you. And I think they know that, and they know what kind of person I am over many years of working with me, or either in my career or on nonprofit organizations. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
I would say I have a little bit different answer. I believe if I get elected, I'm going to be in the business of constituent service first and foremost. And the people who put me in that chair are the people that I'm going to protect. So things like the water tax that disproportionately hurt my district, I'll be the first person raising hell about it, because those are the people I'm supposed to protect. I'll vote my district, then I'll vote my city, then I'll vote my conscience. But is there anything wrong with representing in a strong manner the people who put you in that chair? I think that's your job. You got to look at the city overall, but you have to look at the people who put you in the chair first and foremost, and I always will.
Thank you. Mr. Hershenson. Next question is for you. According to the property appraiser's office, the city owns lots of property. Most are small easements, but some could be used for parking, water retention, small parks, or sold to raise money. What would you like to see done with the city properties, these city properties?
The area, for example, that's downtown, that can be developed, I'm all for getting the best dollar for the value received. And with respect to over the city, the land, I think it has to be considered very, very closely. I am for limited development. It depends upon where that land is located. And if it's located, for example, in an area such as the downtown area, perhaps, some sort of limited development would be appropriate. But I'm definitely concerned, as I said earlier, about the bioreactor. If there are vacant lots within the city that we can construct a bioreactor, which will be underground, I think that would be a great idea, and have a park on top of it. So there are many options here, but I think it depends upon the specific location before anybody makes a decision as what will be developed and where and why.
Thank you.
The City of Bonita owns 107 properties, but only 6 of those are significant. 30, they're right-of-way, parks, bioreactor, I have a whole list. 34 of them are small lots all over the city, most of them in the old part of town. And I agree that they could be used for more bioreactors. They could also be used for parking, some of them around the Feltz Avenue area, which is close to the Bamboo property. So I think that we're already concentrating on the most significant one, which is Bamboo, which is the one that we're already looking for the request for proposal. And there are some smaller ones downtown. But other than that, they're, the Wonder Gardens, the pool, the soccer complex. So it sounds like the city owns a lot of property, but most of those are small lots except for these significant properties that we're already working on.
Thank you.
I would say that I don't think the city's supposed to be a land baron. I tried to do an amendment that did not go through that essentially said that all city-owned land would go up for an RFP, which is a request for proposal, biannually, just so we can see what's out there. I don't want to sell them, but I'd like to see on a biannual basis what we can get for them, because the reality of the situation is that city dollars and city muscle is not going to get us over the threshold downtown. It's going to be small businesses that are going to do that. And the Lemon Tree property, the Mako property, and the Bamboo property are just 3 of those pieces, but there are many. And for me, I think that it's just very important that we get out of our own way and let that little piece of Bonita become what we all planned it to be back in 2012. Thank you.
2 things. First, I think what I'd like to do is to hold a town hall meeting with the business owners downtown and get their views on what's the best use and purpose for those 6 lots that could be sold. Second, I'd like to make sure that whatever is done with those lots is in harmony with what the rest of the planned development that we're hearing about with the RFP for Bamboo Village. I think they all have to be in harmony to make it look good. Third, I don't want to get too far down the line without remembering that we need to avoid some mistakes. Mosaic, the apartments on Mosaic and on Dean Street, I think was a mistake. It was built without elevators, and it was built with stick construction. I don't think we want to make that kind of mistake again. So we got to do things carefully, and we got to do things with a purpose.
Are we done?
Yes.
Okay. Word to you, Ms. Anderson. Do you think the city spends money wisely?
I think for the most part, we spend money wisely. I think we've kept taxes down. There's so many different priorities and a lot of things going on right now. But as far as I'm concerned, we do. I have not looked at the budget in excruciating detail yet. When I'm elected, I would definitely get into the numbers. I'm a financial person, have been my whole career, and so I want to really look at the detail of that, but I have to admit, I haven't done it yet.
Mr. Purdon?
I think there's always room for improvement, especially when it comes to the finances of the city. There's a number of issues where the city, is doing their part, but there are other areas where the residents have been getting hosed. And there's little things, like even for the bamboo property, we're paying this guy who's the real estate developer, he's getting 15% of the deal or something crazy like that off the top. To me, things like that aren't acceptable. So are we fiscally responsible? In some areas, yes. But there's a ton of areas where we're not. Like I said, 17 to 18, look at $750,000 in improved or in ad valorem increases. You're talking $28 million we're getting from FEMA and grants. We have money coming in, so I'm going to be somebody who's going to hold the line on taxes. I don't think now's the time to start hitting the people who can't afford it the most. So I'm going to be somebody who's going to stand strong on those issues. Thank you.
Mr. Corey?
I think there's two things. I don't think it's a wise expenditure of money to pay legal settlements to resolve the Raptor Bay and BG Mines issue. I think those were annexation agreements that the city decided they didn't want to honor, and they got caught with lawsuits, and they ended up coming up with $11.3 million of money that's going to go out the door to resolve those lawsuits. They're also going to be responsible for developing the roads that go up into the BG Mine residential development. So no, I don't think that's good. I think we also have a problem in services. I don't think it's a problem with people. I think it's a problem with we have so much going into CDA in terms of permitting processes and so forth, and I think we have to speed up the permit process so the businesses can properly plan and execute their strategy so they can grow.
Thank you.
I was going to start off by mentioning the fact that no one likes to pay lawyers on lawsuits, and I'm really upset about, disappointed, I guess, on that. However, there are other things happening. There is the Weeks camp and the fishing camp. If that gets approved, then we're going to be seeing $4.8 million on impact fees. And I think that the city, I just look at my taxes every single year. They haven't gone up. So I'm pleased about that. And so I think that the city does manage money, properly overall, but no one likes lawsuits. Having said that, I really believe that the city has learned its lesson, I guess. And I'm looking forward, and I do appreciate the fact that the building downtown will increase our tax revenue base with property being sold, as well as, I say, getting these impact fees and more grants. I think the city's done a great job in this area, and I support more looking for grants. I think that's a good way to proceed.
Thank you. Final question for tonight. Mr. Purdon, I believe you're up. What is the most important issue facing the city, and what do you think can be done about it?
That is a very good question. I have a hodgepodge of answers. I would like a city government that is environmentally responsible, but I also want a city that's going to complete the downtown. I want a city that's going to have a responsive city government. I have met so many people who are in the building process or trying to do business with the City of Bonita Springs, and they can't get anywhere. They're literally stuck on a perpetual loop with staff, and to me, it's not acceptable. They have personal monies and business monies, and these are teachers who are trying to get their second gig downtown, and they're running into barrier after barrier. And to me, I think reminding and letting staff understand that, number one, we're in constituent service is going to be one of the top priorities for me, because once again, I'm going to be working for you all, and the staff will too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think there's a difference between government light and government anemic. I mean, I think with respect to the services that the city offers to the residents, if we're going to offer the services, it's got to be adequately funded to offer those services in such a way that people can take advantage of them, that they can get the permits they need to expand their businesses, they can get the permits they need to build homes. So we need to make sure that we've got enough tax money coming in to take care of that. At the same time, we need to make sure we don't do dumb things like getting sued over annexation agreements. So I think that the city I want to see is one that has a methodology of going about prioritizing what needs to be done first, and how they're going to get it done. And then setting about developing a strategy with some tactics to get it done in a reasonable amount of time.
Thank you.
I think the most important issue for the city, for me, is the improvement and protection of our water quality. When I say improvement, I'm talking about stormwater management. We have a large tourist dollar coming into our city. If we don't keep our water quality where it belongs in a pristine sort of state, we're not going to have that money coming into the city. No one wants to put our boat out or go swimming in red tide. And I think that the outflow of water, we have to do a better job. The summer of '17 was a disaster from the standpoint of flooding. People got scared. People in my own community having water come into their first floor level in some of the condos in my area. That is a very horrible thing to have to witness when you see seniors very worried about whether or not their property, their biggest investment, is going to go down the drain, literally and figuratively. So I put number one, water quality and improving our outflow of water, storm water, to mitigate seriously all of the flooding that's occurred in our city over the last several years. I think 2017 was a turning point.
Thank you, sir.
I think the overall most important issue facing Bonita Springs now and for the next 5, 10, 15 years is growth. Growth encompasses development. What are we going to do about development? How are we going to manage that? It encompasses the water, the environment, the traffic, infrastructure. How are we going to coordinate all these things that overall is about growth of Bonita Springs? If we didn't have any growth, we didn't have to worry about more development or anything. We could spend a lot of time dealing with just water or dealing with just one thing, but we have to look at this holistically. Growth encompasses everything. It affects everything: our environment, our water sources, tourism, the major businesses, people coming here to live and work. So growth is the issue.
Thank you. That concludes our questioning for the...
Jesse, did you speak?
I did.
He answered first.
I can go again if you...
No, I know. It does get confusing sometimes. So, Mr. Corey, since you were last to give your opening statement, you'll give your closing statement first. How much time? 2 minutes.
My closing statement is just that I want to listen to the people in my district and hear what they want to say. I want to get the traffic issues resolved. I want to get the flooding issues resolved. I want Bonita Springs to be known as a wonderful community that attracts people, that has the amenities that we need to have proper growth, that we can have things for kids to do, that we have a vibrant downtown, and that we have a place where people want to live. Now, in order to do that, we've got infrastructure problems, we've got traffic problems, we've got water quality problems, we've got flooding problems, we've got problems that we all need to deal with, and I think reasonable people looking at the same set of facts can come to a reasonable decision on how to address that. And that's why I'm such a believer in town hall meetings. I don't know all the answers. I'm pretty good at being able to lead a discussion, take notes from people, put up a whiteboard and say, okay, here's what we've talked about so far. What do you think the next set of issues are? Or how would we address this? So that's the kind of government that I want to be part of, where we're listening to what people have to say, that we're taking that, we're working on it, and we're reporting back to them. Here's what we got done. Here's what we didn't get done. Here's why we didn't get it done. Or here's why it's not going to cost as much as we thought it would. So that's what I'm all about. I'm all about collaborative government with my constituents.
Thank you. Mr. Purdon?
Thank you to the League of Women Voters. Once again, thank you to the Hispanic Vote of Southwest Florida for your endorsement. Also, Mayor Simmons and Deputy Mayor Gibson, or I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor Gibson, your support to me means a lot because I've met a lot of people out in the community who don't know me from Adam, but they know you gentlemen. And they know that you two have been, you've been good for me, you've been good for our city, and I look forward to working with both of you on the dais. It's important to note that their support of me is predicated on activism within this community for the last 10 years. To close, I want to say, just because we're opponents doesn't mean we're enemies. We just see a different path. I can promise you, regardless of who wins this race, I'll look forward to working with whoever sits in that seat. But I am a firm believer in actions. I firmly believe there's a difference between living somewhere and involving yourself in the process. My activism is not related to a campaign. My activism is on tape for every significant issue we've faced in this city, from the DRGR to the high school to saving the historic water tower downtown, medicinal marijuana, and food trucks. 3 weeks after I lost this seat last time by 63 votes to Greg DeWitt, guess what? I was sitting in the first row when he was getting sworn in cheering for him. I lost and I didn't run away. I lost and I doubled down. And I doubled down because I believe in Bonita, because I believe in you guys, and I hope that you elect me so that I can be the type of fighter that District 2 deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms.
We
Anderson?
missed Ben.
What's
Well,
that?
that's okay. I'm,
I think he
Go on.
revoked.
and the last shall be first. Anyway, I'm an individual who not only talks the talk, I walk the walk. I've had a history of working within my community over the last 10 years about issues that are important to them. I didn't decide to run for city council because I wanted to do something ahead of me. I am running because I have already done and I want to continue to do the things that I've done in the past. I know a lot of people in my area and my community. It's very, very diverse community. And I understand that listening to people is far important as to what before you make any decision. So I'm actually thinking I've done my job and I want to continue doing my job on a much larger scale. I will be available to any community within the city to speak out on various issues, but more importantly, to listen to my constituents. So as far as I am concerned, I'm a person who has the skills to lead. I have the courage to be decisive, and I also have the humility to understand that not everybody's going to agree with me, and I want to be able to work collaboratively with my colleagues to solve the problems that not only face the city for today, but are going to be there for the years to come. What we do today is important for how the city will appear 10, 15, 20 years down the road.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I think I've told enough about myself, about me and pretty much what I think about a lot of the issues in the city, so I'm just going to tell you a little story. Sunday morning I went out and went door to door, which is a little intimidating, but it turned out to be great fun. And when I was through, I went to Survey Cafe to have lunch. And there was a long line because it was Sunday, and there was a young family in front of me. It was a couple, and they had a little 3-year-old daughter. And so, we're all standing in line, so we got talking to each other. And I talked to the husband mostly, and I said, "Do you live in Bonita?" I told him I was running. I had my name tag on and said what I was doing, and he was real interested in that. And he said, "Unfortunately, I live in Estero. We couldn't afford to live in Bonita right now, but our goal is to live in Bonita." He said, "A perfect Sunday for us is to go to church, go to Downtown Coffee and Wine and have coffee, come to Survey Cafe and have lunch, and then we take our daughter to the Wonder Gardens. That's our perfect day. And if we lived here, we could do all that, and we can walk like I do." And they had both graduated from FGCU and decided to stay in the area. They were from up north, and they said, "We wanted to stay here and make this our home." And it just made me feel so happy. It's like, these are the people that we need. We need to train and retain these young people. She's a teacher in Naples. He works for Gartner Group in Fort Myers. So they wanted to live in Bonita in between, but they're in Estero right now. But it was just like such a feel-good story. This is what we want in Bonita. So that's my story.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. The League wants to thank you for that, and I apologize for the flubs. I couldn't see any of the names here. It gave me a lot of difficulty. I should have positioned myself a little better. But I think we got through it okay.
okay, yeah.
Everybody did a wonderful job, and I appreciate everybody who came out and asked questions. And would you like to close up?
Yes.
Okay.
If you go to vote 411, the candidates have given their bios, have posted their bios, and have answered questions, so you can learn more about the candidates through vote 411. Also, this candidates forum has been televised. It will be posted on vote 411, and it will also be posted on our website, which is LWVLEE.org. That's LWVLEE.org. Sandy, is there anything else that we're posting? You think that it? Okay. So anyway, thank you all for coming, and it had some really
Yes,
great
thank
questions.
you.
I would just like to add momentarily that there are other forums coming up that involve officials that are not City of Bonita Springs, but maybe people who affect your lives by representing you in the Senate and the House. Keep your eye on our website. You'll know when those are.